welcome back to the channel. This is going to be the first video in a series of videos that I'm going to show you guys step by step how to remodel or club in a basement. Really what we're doing is I'm building a bedroom in this area right here, and it's going to have an adjoining full bathroom, so toilet, sink, and a stand-up shower. Don't mind the mess, that's just some leftovers from demo work I was doing. And in this multi-part series, I'm going to teach you how to do everything you need to do to end up with a finished product that looks professional. My background, I am a licensed contractor in the state of Maryland. I have over 25 years of experience doing this. So I'm going to try and pass along some of that experience to you guys and help you avoid some of the mistakes that some DIYers make, and try and make the whole process as smooth as humanly possible for you. So, like I said, this is just the first video in a multi-part series. I don't know how many videos exactly it's going to be, but give you another look at the space. So we're going to be doing roughly a 11 by 11 bedroom with a closet, and then I would say about a 5 by 8 bathroom. I haven't measured or designed that out all fully yet. The important thing here is you don't need to have a full shop full of tools and table saws and sawhorses, everything under the sun to do this. This is definitely something that your average, reasonably mechanically inclined homeowner can do with just basic tools. Okay, so for this part of the framing process, which is physically building the walls, you're going to need a few tools. Like I said before, none of these are super expensive, and I have a couple different kinds here. You're going to need a hammer. Doesn't have to be a framing hammer, doesn't have to be that big, just needs to be a hammer. Tape measure, whatever, I got 25 foot, pencil, some kind of saw. Now, whether that's a hand saw, and if you're doing this with a hand saw, you better have a strong arm, because it's going to be tired. So I'm just using a regular old circular saw and a square. Now, there's a couple different kinds of squares. They all do the same exact thing. So, little framing square, speed square, larger speed square, full-size framing square, get that in the frame, or a combination square, which is adjustable. You can take this, try to use one hand, and you can adjust it to length. Any of these will work. It does not matter what kind you have. I'm going to be using speed square. Probably using this one. Like I said, they all do the same thing, so whatever you have around, that's what you can use. Okay, so starting the layout of our first wall. We're going to start on this wall right here. So what we're going to do to start with, since I have 8 foot 2x4s, and I know my wall is going to be larger than 8 foot, or longer than 8 foot long, we need to take a measurement from the far wall to where this wall is going to stop. And this is where, as I said before, the layout is very important. You got to have those concrete or those defined stop points, so that way you can get these accurate measurements and transfer them over. So I'm going to go take a quick measurement, find out my total length, and we'll go from there. It's also important that you make sure you're completely against the wall. You don't want to be pushed up against dirt or scrap wood or something like that, which could affect your measurement. So we have, this is going to be 137 inches. It's actually 136 and 7/8, but 137 inches. That's what we're going to make our wall. So, what we want to do is, so we already know that our 8-foot 2x4 is not going to be long enough. So we have a total of 137 inches and an 8-foot 2x4. And believe me, you're going to want to measure and verify that they actually cut them 96 inches. Yep. So what we want to do is subtract 96 from 137, and that leaves with 41. So it's actually 40 and 7/8, because it's 136 and 7/8 of an inch is what our wall length is going to be. So to make that difference up, what we want to do is, well, let me see if I can get a, move my hammer. Oh. See if I can get a close-up of this. So, our total length of the wall is 136 inches and 7/8 of an inch. So we're going to have to cut a piece to make up the difference, because that's more than 8 feet and I have 8-foot 2x4s. So what we do is we take the 136 inches and 7/8 and we subtract 96 from that. So we're subtracting this. That'll give us the length of the piece that we need to cut to fill in that difference in length. So you have 136 and 7/8 minus 96, and that equals 40 and 7/8. So what we need to do is cut 2 pieces, because you have a bottom plate, goes on the very bottom of the wall, and a top plate. And we're going to cut them 40 and 7/8. So right there. That's kind of, I know it's kind of hard to see, but take it on faith. That's 40 and 7/8. So we're going to go cut from one direction, and move you guys over, and we're going to do the same thing. So 40 and 7/8. Now we're going to take our square, draw our cut line on there, and put an X on the side of the line that's scrap. That's going to be real important, so that way you don't cut on the wrong side of the line and end up making your board too short. So we're going to do that to both pieces here. Alright, so that gives us both our pieces. Both of them are 40 and 7/8. So when we put our wall together, the complete wall will be 136 and 7/8, which will take us right to that layout line that I put on the wall, that I drew on the block wall. So with the layout of our wall, we want to do 16 inches on center. And if you don't know what I mean by 16 inches on center, let's pretend this is one of our studs. Okay. Every 16 inches, the center of the stud will break on that. So, just like that. Let me come around this side, you'll see what I mean. So, see 16 inches right there, and it's breaking right in the center of the stud. Okay, so we want to lay our entire wall out like that, the entire length of it, the full 136 and 7/8 of an inch. Okay, And how we do that is, move my saw. A 2x4 or a regular standard stud is going to be 1.5 inches wide. And if we want the center of that to be at 16 inches, we just deduct half the thickness. Simple math. So what I did is I come over to 16 inches and then I came back to 15 1/4. And so I subtracted 3/4 of an inch from that. And I put a line. And on this side of the line, I put an X. That's how I know what side of the line to put the stud. So I did that going all the way down. So anywhere there's a red box, so 16, 32, 48, 64, so on and so forth, till infinity. You come over to the measurement, deduct 3/4, put a line. I did the same thing, going all the way down. Everyone's like that. Okay. I did that on one board. Now notice I have both plates, both top and bottom plates are right up against each other. So I did put these marks on one of those boards, only on one of them. And then once I was done laying it all the way out, I come back with my speed square. Where'd it go? Right here. So I came back with my speed square. Line it up on a line and draw my line across both of them. So that way I know both of these plates are laid out exactly the same. They have to be. I transferred the lines from one to another. All right. The other thing I did, if you remember, we cut pieces to extend that plate. There's one of those pieces right here. And the other one is down here. Now, notice I staggered them. Or I put one of the pieces on the right hand side and one of them on the left hand side, depending on which plate. You do that to keep strength in the wall. Since this is going to be split and you're going to have a stud that's going to be nailed to both of these, if you did that on the top and bottom, it creates a really weak spot in the wall and it tends to flex there. So by staggering these as I did, now it doesn't matter the length of the two pieces. This could have been 65 inches or whatever. You still want to stagger those because it gives you, it spreads that load out and it doesn't create a weak spot in the wall. So now that I got them laid out, 16 inches on center each and every one of them, and remember to put your X on the side of the line you want to put your stud. All right, so that way you keep them all nice and straight and everything stays organized. And down here at the end, this is less than 16, but that's okay. That's just whatever it is. And then we got one stud that goes right there, flush up to the end of it. So that is how you lay out 16 on center. So just to recap, you're going to come over 16, back 3/4. Now, if you don't feel like doing all of the subtraction, that's just the method that I learned. One thing you can always do is lock your tape measure. Do your first one like that. So the first one gets set up just like that. Then you can take your tape measure. Take your tape measure, run it down, put the very end of it on that line. Just like that. Alright? And now you'll notice all you got to do is come over to the red boxes and put a line. Blip. Okay. Now, one thing I have done is I found our measurements for, actually it's two things, found our measurements for where our window is going to lay out. And give me 1 second here and I can hopefully zoom out. Nope, it's not letting me. So what I did is I measured from the corner right there, right to this edge of this window. Then I transferred that measurement from this edge of the board to right here. And put an X. So the stud's going to go there. That stud should line up exactly with that upright board on the window. Then I measured from the window, from this edge right here, and got my distance between those two boards. Okay? I came back over here again. I measured from right here on this line to this line right here. Okay? So this is the inside edge of that window. So I'm going to put another stud right here. Now, I scratched out all the studs in between because otherwise they'd be blocking the window. So what we're going to do is we'll frame the wall up, get the wall up into place, so that way it's up there, and then we can fill in the pieces, the horizontal pieces, the bottom and the top of the sill, once it's up there. Now, we can do that with these walls because, like I said before, these are partition walls, so they're not load bearing. So we don't need to put a structural header in. It's just there to carry the drywall so we can finish it off. If this were a load bearing wall, meaning it's going to be supporting a level above it, or if you were going to have attic space above it, if it was on a second story of a house, something along those lines, you would have to make a structural header. And I'll get into that in one of my other videos. I don't think I need to confuse you with it just yet. So I laid out the window. Then I also took a measurement from that corner over here to where this vent pipe, which actually I think is the outlet pipe for my sump pump, is. Because I have to trim the top plate so that it will allow that room. I can't put anything there because, you know, if I put something there, a stud there, it's going to have to go through the pipe and that just won't work. So I'm stopping the top plate here. The bottom plate will continue over to there. Okay. The top plate stopping here to allow for that. And then what we'll do is we'll fill this in with an upright, just so it has a nailer to tie things together. So this is the one I've decided is going to be my top plate. Okay, so I've come over here and I've cut it off. So it's simply just going to have a stud. It's going to go right there and finish it off. This one will go up to that beam, even with the beam. And then I'll just put a piece going across. Now it may seem a little confusing right now, but it'll make a little more sense once I get it up there and we start building the wall and you see it in place. It'll make a little more sense. So the next step is to figure out our height. And how we're going to do that is we're going to take a couple different measurements. We're going to measure from our unfinished floor, where we're going to actually attach the bottom plate to, all the way up to that floor joist right there. It runs all the way down. So that's what we're going to fasten our top plate to. So when we measure, we're going to measure from the floor to the floor joist, but we also got to take into account that you're going to have a top plate and a bottom plate. So we need to subtract the thickness of the top and bottom plate, so that way it gives us our stud length. So it'll fit between the bottom and the top plates. So how we do that is we just measure, take a couple measurements, a few different spots, you know. I would go probably 4 different spots on here, so that way you know if the wall, the ceiling's up and down, or the floor's got waves in it or something like that. And you build the wall to your shortest dimension. So, okay guys, well, I lucked out. I measured and my clearance is exactly 99 inches, which is just what I need to not have to cut any of these boards. So, basically what you would do is you're going to measure your entire height, and then you're going to deduct 3 inches from it. That 3 inches accounts for your bottom plate and top plate, the thickness of those. So after you deduct that from your total height, that gives you the length of all your studs. So what I've done here is I've cut 8 studs, which I just counted out how many I was going to need, not counting around the window. Remember, we're leaving those out. And just went ahead and counted out 8 of those studs, and now we're just going to go ahead and nail them into place. I got the top and bottom plates laid out. Top plates up there, bottom plates down here. There's the stagger on pieces. All right. We have all our layout lines. So now it's just a matter of attaching the bottom plate to the stud. And how we're going to do that, we're going to flip the board or plate up. We're going to take a stud. I'm going to line it up with just the edge, make it nice and flush. Make sure it's flush across this level here. And then you're going to put 2 nails. You're going to want to use 12 common nails. They're just framing nails. So you're going to use 12 commons. I'm not hand nailing it. I'm going to use a pneumatic nailer. That's there's Meatball again. Hi, Meatball. Meatball does not like the air nailer. She will disappear quickly. So all you got to do is bring your studs up, line them up with your lines. Let me see. Let me get a better angle on this for you guys. See our line right there? You're going to bring your stud up. You're going to line it up with the line. You're going to put 2 nails in it. Nailing from this direction. And essentially you just do that all the way across. Wherever a stud's supposed to go, wherever you got your X, put your stud, put 2 nails in it. Do it along the entire bottom plate, and then you're going to repeat the process at the top. Now, let me come down here. Where our plate is split, in the event that you have a stud that breaks on 2, like this one's going to. Okay, let me get this. What you're going to do is you're going to nail it at an angle. You're going to come over right about into here somewhere, and you're going to nail at an angle. So it's going to go through there at an angle, something like that. Then you're going to come over to this side, and you're going to nail at an angle going in like that. So that's going to tie both of these plates into this stud, which is going to make it structurally sound at that point. It's still going to be the weakest spot of your wall. Once the top plate and the bottom plate are attached firmly to the floor and the ceiling, it's going to be a non-issue. Now, one step that I did not show you guys that I did, yep, hi Meatball. Problem with working at home. If you have pets, they just want attention. Is I crowned all of my lumber. So when you crown lumber, you're going to look right down that edge. You're going to close one eye. You're going to look right down that corner. And you're looking for any kind of curve in it at all. So you're going to look at it from that point of view, and then you're going to flip it this way. And you're going to look at it again. Now that one is pretty straight. Let me take one that's got kind of a slick crown to it here. Okay, here we go. This one, this edge, it kind of curves. It does like this. Slightly. It's ever so slightly. So this is going to be the inside of the wall. So what we want to do is crown them so that, well, actually it doesn't matter which way you put it. You could put the crown facing down or facing up. The important thing to do is make sure you do that consistently throughout the wall. So after you crown all your boards and you find out which way they're carving or if they're carving, you want to put all of them in the same direction. So that way, the reason you do that is not really necessarily for structural reasons, but when you put your sheetrock on your wall, if you have them alternating, it can create a wave effect in the wall, which if the wall is long enough, you can actually notice that. So putting it all in one direction, putting them all in one direction, it makes it more pleasing to the eye. It makes it, your end result is much cleaner and it looks more uniform. So it's a good practice to get into. I didn't mark these. Usually if you have a lot of lumber you're doing it to, you're going to want to put an X or scratch marks or something on the side, which is the top part of the crown. So wherever it's going like this, you want to put an X. So that way you know when you look at all your lumber, you already automatically know which way the crown is going on it. So, all right, so what I've done, your wall should look something like that. I mean, it'll be custom to whatever you're doing, but what I've done is attach both bottom and top plate and swept the floor real good where the bottom plate's going to go, and put a nice thick bead of liquid nail down. It's just construction adhesive. It really doesn't matter what brand you use. I prefer liquid nail. You could use OSI, Loctite makes it. There's a bunch of different kinds. In the end, it's a construction adhesive. So what you're trying to do is seal it off at the floor as well as anchor it to the concrete floor. Since it's a concrete floor, we can't just, simply nail into it. Well, I'm going to nail into it, but I have a power nailer that I'm going to do that with. If you don't have a power nailer, you can rent a hammer drill and get something called Tapcom screws. They're just concrete screws. They come with a bit. So you just drill a hole, drill right through your bottom plate into the concrete, the full length of the bit, and just run the screw down in there and make it tight. It's really there just to hold it until the adhesive sets up with these partition walls. So I'm gonna shoot a couple 3-inch screws or 3-inch nails through it with my power nailer. It's a nailer that you put a 22 caliber charge in and blank in, and it fires a nail right into the concrete. So I'm going to go ahead and put a time lapse on here and let you guys follow along. I'm going to raise the wall, get it put into place, and get it nailed at the floor, and then nail it at the top. Alright, next step, guys, is we need to fill in here. So, when we finish up the windows, you gotta have something for whether it's gonna be wood or drywall or whatever. We gotta have something to attach that to, as well as we gotta have something for our drywall to attach to here. So, what we're gonna do is go ahead and measure across. That's 41 inches. Should be the same up at the top. And it is. So we're going to cut two pieces, 41 inches for here. And then we're going to measure up. Looks like 59 and a half. And 59 and a half. So we're going to go ahead and attach the 41 inch piece here and then fill in our missing studs down here, so that way the drywall has something to carry it and you don't have a soft wall in that area. So I'm going to go ahead and get those cut, and we'll go from there. Alright, now that we've filled in around the window, got the framing done around there, that is our finished framed wall. That wall's ready for electrical to be running through it if you had to. We are definitely going to insulate it since this is a basement. You definitely want to insulate the walls, but that'll be in a later video. Other than that, that is your finished wall. The rest of the walls in this room, you follow the exact same procedure. So it's just a matter of taking your measurement for length, figuring out how far you got to extend past 8 feet, and then laying out for 16 inches on center. Once you're done laying out for 16 inches on center, you just check for any obstacles like we did around like the window and the pipe up in the corner. In the case of this wall over here, it's going to be identical process to the first wall. These other two walls over there and right here, they're going to have doors in them. So when I get to those walls, I'll take a break and show you guys how to lay out for doors, do the rough out opening for the doors, and show you the proper way of doing that. Sorry about that, guys. Apparently at some point my battery died on the GoPro here. But you can see, got the second wall up. It was done exactly the same way as the first wall. So you didn't miss anything there. A few less obstructions. Now moving on to the wall leading into the bathroom here. That's where things change a little bit, where I could show you how to lay out for a door. So I've already laid this out on the floor, and what I want to do is right in this area right here, I'm putting a 30-inch door that will swing into the bathroom. The direction of the swing really doesn't matter as far as framing's concerned. That would certainly play a part when you're doing the layout. So what I did is I laid out the door, and when you frame in a doorway, so if you're putting a 30-inch doorway in, you have to, and I just happen to have a door here, you have to allow for the thickness of the door jamb, or the framing around the door. So typically that's 3/4 of an inch on each side. So same for a pre-hung door as it would be if you're building a door jamb from scratch. So you got to add an inch and a half right off the bat right there. So that puts us at 31.5 for our framed out opening. You don't want to build it super ultra tight. I mean, you want to have room to adjust the door. Make sure it's going to be perfectly plumb, level, make sure the door shuts correctly. So you give yourself another 1/2 inch on either side, or another 1/4 inch rather, I'm sorry, on either side. So that way you can move the door jamb around a little bit here and there, just make sure it's shutting correctly. So your rough out opening is going to be 32 inches. 30-inch door, add 2 inches. The height on the doors, standard door is going to be 80 inches tall. So same rule applies. You got to account for flooring. If it's carpet, you got to raise it up a little bit, or if it's tile. So basically you just add another 2 inches to it. So whatever the door size is, it doesn't make a difference. It could be a 24-inch door, it could be a 36-inch door. You always add 2 inches to your rough opening. The rough opening being the framed opening. So I've allowed for that here. Between these 2 points is 32 inches. Now you're not just going to put a stud next to the door. You have what are called jack studs. And what they do is they don't go where this stud goes completely from top plate to bottom plate. A jack stud is only going to go up like to your header here. Okay? So that jack stud's going to go up 82 inches rather, I'm sorry. And then you're going to have your header piece, it's going to go across the top, just like with the window here. So if this were a doorway, you'd have a jack stud here. Alright. And then next to the jack stud, there's always a full height stud. So that's the only difference between framing at a wall, just a partition wall with a window in it, or just a partition wall, and framing out one with a doorway. You just have to allow for the doorway, and it's just it's up to you where you put it. We don't have an existing doorway here now, so we can put the door anywhere we want. It's just a matter of measuring it and doing your layout, and that's why I said the layout's so important. This is where you're going to be able to figure out where you're going to put your doorways, what size they're going to be, things like that. But aside from just allowing 2 inches on, or an inch on either side of your door, the layout for the wall is identical. You're still going to do 16 inches on center. If one of the studs falls in the doorway, you just leave that one out, and it carries, you pick it back up after on top of the header. The reason for the 16 inches on center, the 2 foot on center, is so that it works out for when you hang drywall. You don't want to have an edge of your drywall just floating with nothing behind it. So, and I'll get into more of that once we get to doing drywall. But I'm going to go ahead and frame this wall up and get this one framed up and put it on time lapse, and hopefully it doesn't shut off this time. And same thing as before, you also want to look up above. I'm sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit. Look up above and account for any obstructions. So we're going to have to notch out around this pipe, notch out around the drain line here, and maybe do a notch for some electrical that can't be relocated. And we do the same thing as we did over here. So the process is the same. You just measure, omit it, and put a nailer in. That's all. So it's just notch out around it and make sure you double check yourself. You know, before you cut something or before you go and try and raise the wall, take a look at it again. Make sure you're not going to be pinching something, pinching a wire, breaking a pipe, putting pressure on a pipe or something like that that could break. It's just a good idea to give it a once over and make sure before you try and raise your wall that it's going to actually fit in the space.